Welcome, everyone. Today I've got a very special guest joining us. Justine Carey is a wonderful long-term client of mine, and I've invited her to join us today to share a little bit more about her story, her client journey, where she was and where she is today. Welcome, Justine.
Hi Karen, how are you?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us, what the last 3 or 4 years have been like for you. I think we first met, or actually back in 2016 at an event, but you didn't become a client straight away. Tell us a little bit about where you were then, what was going on, and the whole process of joining a program with me, and give us a little bit about your backstory to start.
Yes, I met you so long ago at a Women in Business event here in Port Lincoln. And I had been previously listening to Bob Proctor. I had been, going through the internet and seeing what's out there. And, I was on a journey of just self-discovery. I really wasn't a happy person at the time. And I knew had to be more to life and there had to be more out there for me. So when I first went to your event, I was so shocked that there was this stuff out there and I'd never actually been a part of it to that degree. So it took me a little while to actually sign up. I'd followed you for a while, and then second time you came to Lincoln, I was in. I was all in. So
So
yeah.
good. You've kind of been all in since then. We were trying to work out how long ago that was. I don't know if it was 2017 or 18, but you've just always been around since then.
I feel like a Karen Brook groupie. I just love the material and I love what you teach, and I have changed completely as a person. My family's changed. Where we're at has everything's just changed about my whole entire life.
So tell us where you were back then and what you were wanting. Like, where were you then? Because you were even in a completely different business then. So where were you then, and what were you wanting? Like, what was going on for you back then?
Yep. So I had two teenage kids back then. Well, they were young, I think about 12 and 10. I had my own business in events and weddings. So I was working a lot, working weekends. Um, I was a single mum half the time because my husband was a fisherman and worked away quite a lot. And like I said, I needed growth. I needed to find something to push me, to inspire me to make changes in my life. So, I was doing all the right things. We had properties and a business, and like I said, we were goers, but internally I wasn't happy, and I needed to find that something else, or something,
Mm,
to ground me more and bring me back to my center. So
yeah, yeah. And had you, before you got involved with my coaching and our community, had you tried anything else? Like, were you searching for a while? Had you tried anything else before you started with me?
only really just listening to things and getting my head around personal development, I guess. I listened to a few of the Bob Proctor um, videos and things like that, but I hadn't actually delved in that sort of area before, so it was all quite new to me. So I
Mm,
think that's why I was also so excited and thought, wow, this can make changes. So
mm. Yeah, I agree with you. I think the first time that I heard what Bob was teaching as well, I also was like, wow, I can't believe I haven't come across this before and that I'm not using it. And it just made so much sense. Did you sort of have the same? It just felt so logical and normal. I couldn't believe that I was only getting it at 30?
oh, definitely. I think I was a bit older than that, so probably about 35. But yeah, I'm a very process person, and I like rules and regulations and
Yeah,
formulas. And to me, this was like a formula for your life. And I
it
just,
is.
yeah, couldn't believe it taken me that long to find it, really.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
and yeah, no, it's definitely changed my life, and I'm still in the programs today, and I still live by them and making changes and kicking goals.
So you heard about it, you were following a little bit of Bob, or was it how did you hear about me and then join all the dots?
I heard about you through a women in business group here in Port Lincoln. So
Okay.
I was invited along. Yeah, I think I was only just dabbling in the Bob Proctor thing. So
Yeah.
and then put two and two together that it was linked. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so great. And so tell us now, so there's probably been the best part of 5 or so years, I reckon, that you've been around and been studying with me and you've done all the programs and we obviously have the extension programs now, but what have been some of the outcomes? Like just talk us through. So some of the outcomes for yourself personally, even for your family. Give us a little bit of perspective now about, you mentioned that you were in an events business, your husband was working away, so much has changed for your family. Like, what have been some of the outcomes, the specific outcomes that you've received from doing this, from really, because I think sometimes, we talk about quantum leaps and paradigm shifts and no, but no, give me something like tangible that I can understand. And I know that anyone listening to this will find your story really powerful around that because it is like night and day, 5 years on. So tell us about some of the outcomes from this work.
Wow, where do you want me to start? There's been so many
Give
for
it
us.
to us. I love it.
I guess, I mean, there's been specific things along the way. One of the biggest, I wouldn't say the biggest, but a big event in my life was training and winning gold in a boxing match. That was huge. And I really applied all the principles and the visualization and all the steps, the self-confidence and just knowing that I could do it and having that belief. So that was huge, just to even do the training, let alone get on stage in a ring and have a fight and, be the one at the end of the day with your hand up getting the gold medal.
So good. I remember I think when you first joined me, like that was what you used the first time you ever worked with me for, was around that goal.
Yeah, and it was sort of like a little test, does this really work? How does it go? But it's not just the winning, it's the feelings behind it. It's the knowing that, it is possible and feeling calm. I remember on the day, there was 1 millisecond where I was getting ready with my coach and I went, what am I doing? I've got to pull out. This is crazy. Who can do this? A mum of two? No way, But it was just the tiniest millisecond. And I remember going, shut up, get over there, you.
Yeah.
I'm going in. I've trained
for this. Good.
So
good.
Yeah,
that's just one thing. Tell us about some other, I mean, I know the stories, but I want everyone to know the stories. So tell us some more stories of outcomes and shifts that you've made.
Sure. Another one is our buying our dream block. So we live in Port Lincoln and there's quite a few hills. We live in a bay, so there's beautiful views from everywhere. And I remember when I first moved to Lincoln, our friends were building a house on this hill. And so this would have been 20 plus years ago. And I said, one day I'd love to be rich enough to own a property like this, but I want to be closer. I want to be closer to the water. Anyway, probably about 10 years ago, there were some blocks where I wanted for sale and I'm like, please, I think we need to get this. And my husband was like, no, not the right time. And anyway, so a few years ago, my dream block had actually sold in the meantime, but there was one next to it. And I still had my eye on that space. And it was quite amazing that no one had built on it yet. In all that time, it was still empty, and it has the most amazing views. It's uninterrupted, can't be built out at all. So anyway, and I remember working with you on that and going, don't know if we can get it, financially and things like that. And it was just about holding on to that dream, holding on to it and believing it and finding a way as well. And I remember even when we eventually did buy it, there was issues with the loan and then going, right, calm down, it's okay. If it's meant to be, it'll be ours.
Yeah.
And, now we own this amazing block of land and we're about to put a shed on it and start the process of building our dream house. And yeah, so hopefully in a few years, I'll be talking to
Yeah.
you from my new
I
house.
know you
So,
will be, definitely. I've seen the plans. It's
yeah.
amazing. And what about your events business? So you sold that business?
I did. I sold last year, or at the end of last year. It was something that I wanted to do. I was building up the business to be able to
Yeah.
sell it. And with applying all these principles, I increased my sales, increased my profits, put on more staff, expanded the business, and sold it end of last year. And now I'm becoming a mindset coach. So
I know.
I'm
It's so
loving it.
great.
Yeah,
It's
that's
so
how much
great.
I love this stuff and
Yeah. And you've
apply
got
the
so much
principles.
like lived experience. I think that's really important. Like if you're transitioning into a different space, particularly in coaching. And I always say, we get clients all the time that want to come in and become a coach. And I say, well, demonstrate through your own results, go and get results, go and apply these principles and prove it to yourself. And then you'll also be able to show that you know what you're talking about. And you've certainly got, so many examples of that. So anyone that, ends up working with you, they're going to be in great hands because you've got, like, you believe it, because you've experienced it. It's so powerful. What about your husband, your family? So, what have been some of the positive impacts or shifts that you've seen in them or as a family as a result of, even though they haven't, been the coachee, they've been a part of it still benefiting. What changes have you seen in them?
That has been amazing as well. I didn't even think that was possible, because you
Mm,
can't change someone, but the knock-on effects and like the energy. I think because I became a calmer person, I took control of myself.
yeah,
I worked through some of my backstories and, you know, that's where I changed. And
mm,
that sort of fed into my family. So I've got a 20-year-old and a near 18-year-old.
yeah,
And just seeing them now become young adults and, their morals and the way they, behave in life. And it's funny because they'll say things to me. Oh, you manifested that. And,
that's that's so good.
yeah,
And
they'll
it's
come
so
out with it.
normal, right? For
Yeah,
them now. It's just, well, that's the way we do things.
yeah. And even my husband, he, bless him, he's like, don't feed me that stuff. But every now and then he'll just, say something or, has these, just these things that you go, oh yeah,
Yeah,
taking it
it's
on
rubbing
board.
off.
Yeah.
I know, I must say, I was sitting at the breakfast table this morning with Dave, who and he said something, and I was like, is that Bob Proctor sitting at the end of the table? Since when am I getting a sermon from you? Because they are listening and they are taking it, but all in their own time.
Yeah,
Um, and when it relates to them or where they're at, and then they can start picking it up. We don't need to force anything. We just need to be, is what I've learned with the family and the kids. So,
yeah,
um,
definitely.
so good. So you sold the business. So now you've launched your mindset coaching business, which is great. So tell us more about your plans for the year ahead. Like where to now for you with all of this, everything you've already transformed. Like what's the next year look like for Justine?
So excited. So finishing off my studies. I'm already thinking, oh, what else could I study past that? But
Yeah.
launching my business and getting out there in the world and, putting helping people really is what I want to do.
Yeah.
I've also just become chair on the local business chamber and commerce
Oh,
position. So that's new for me as well. I'm just growing and learning
is
and
that something you would
expanding.
have done before this, Justine, or you would never have put your hand up for that before now?
I may have been on a committee in the background, just helping with the event side of things, but the position came up for the chair, and I thought, you know what, I need to keep growing, and
Yeah.
put myself out there. So
Mm.
that's why I decided
It's
to do that.
interesting you say that about you want to keep growing. Yesterday I was doing an interview similar to this, but I was in your spot, and they said, what's your philosophy? What's important to you, particularly, with family life? And I said, the number one thing that's most important to me is growth.
Mm.
And I think you've just said the same thing. Like, I've got to keep growing, and you feel the benefits of that, don't you? When you're growing, you feel it.
But it's fun as well. It's like,
Yeah,
what's next? This is exciting. I think because for me, I've come from quite a lower, well, I would think a lower place. So I feel like I'm jumping the levels now, and I'm getting
yeah,
to the stage where it's like, oh, if I can do this, what else can I do?
100%. Yeah. I love it. Even when you wrote to me this week about your own goals, and you were like, I just see, when I wrote that, I thought it was a fantasy, like your next C type goal. And now you're like, oh, I just see that I don't want to limit myself. There could be so much more than that. And that's what's so powerful about this. And you surround yourself with other people, and you do feel limitless. Hey.
Definitely. Yeah.
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 It's so good.
Amazing.
Tell me about a favorite lesson or concept that really has stood for you over the years as a regular client. What's a lesson that you've learned that's really stood out for you that you keep using and keep coming back to? Tell us about the lesson and how you've used it in your life.
I love all the lessons, to be honest.
I know you do, but just one.
Probably the one that has the biggest impact on me is self-confidence. I love writing out the self-image script, and the 50 shopping list, and dreaming of what's possible, and making those changes, and just improving. So
That's so good.
yeah.
And do you have a favorite manifestation? Like, just it blew your mind that it happened or that you manifested it. Like, is there a highlight for you?
My fight is one, because even to this day, I still think that was so cool. And I will do it again. I trained for a fight last year, but I didn't get a match up. So I went through all the training.
And just pause on that. What's that like for you to go through? Because we can want what we want, but sometimes it doesn't always work out exactly how we had planned, which is why I always say, like, we want to know what we want, but want everything, need none of it, like, because it's the growth that's important. So what was that experience like for you, where you trained for a fight but didn't get a match up? How did you handle that?
Luckily, with my newfound skills, I handled it really well. I mean, you always get the emotions of, the letdown and the disappointment, but at the same time, I was like, no, there's a reason for it. It's okay. My time will come. I'll get another chance at this. I'm fit. I'm healthy. There's, it's all good. It's okay. So I think it's that knowing that everything is going to work out, and there's always a lesson in it anyway. So you have that disappointment where you're like, oh, I've done all this training and I can't get there. I can't do it. But there's always, but it will happen. Or, it was actually at the same time I was selling my business, moving house. So I had a lot on my plate at that time, and it was just the space I needed at the right time anyway. So yeah.
So you reckon that's your so far? I mean, the next
still going.
Story's still to be told, but you reckon the fight's one of the highlights so far, winning that gold medal?
That and buying the block of land. So oh, I've got heaps really, Karen. Buying my shoes. I bought some shoes that
you did.
I know it's so little, but it was the biggest amount I've ever spent on shoes before, and they're my pride and joy, and they sit, where
I hope you're wearing them today for this.
Sure.
You will next time, won't you?
I will.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
so good. So
yeah.
good. Um, what would you say to somebody who is watching this for the first time? Maybe it's the first time they're hearing this, or maybe they've been, watching our community, the stories out of the community, the coaching for a while. Like, what do you say to that person who's thinking about getting into a program and becoming part of our extraordinary community of people around the world?
I would say don't wait, don't delay, just do it. Because you don't know what you're missing until you actually do it,
Mm,
until you're there. I don't like looking backwards, and I don't have any regrets in my life. But if I had started a lot earlier, like I always go, imagine where I'd be now. So,
mm,
but things come at the right time. But please, yeah, just start. It's my life has changed like night and day. So
yeah.
it's been amazing for me, and everyone in the community is so welcoming, and we all work off each other, and it's amazing. I just love
It's so
it.
powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just so grateful now that you have this level of awareness that, for the people who you're connected with can benefit now as well. That's what I love about this, givers gain. Just spreading the light and spreading the message and helping everybody really come into their own greatness and live it. So, tell us the best way if someone's watching this, they want to follow you or reach out to you, where should they go?
Yep. So my website is justinecarey.com. It's launching very soon. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram under Justine Carey Coaching. So,
Amazing.
yeah.
So good. Thank you so much, Justine, for sharing your story with us. I know that we're going to see more of you, and there'll be more of these stories that come up over the next year or so, and we'll definitely share more of your story over the coming year. So, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to have you on.
Thank you, Karen. I loved it.